state parks can be a really affordable option for RVers, and we found one in Georgia that should be at the top of your list.
You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with wanderlust.
Welcome to the Travel FOMO podcast. My name is Hilarie Houghton, and I am here with my southern beau, my charmer, Jamin, my husband Jamin.
We are definitely in the charming South.
Oh my goodness, so charming. Love the South. Okay, so this episode we are taking you to Savannah, Georgia. It's part of our East in the Airstream series.
Mm-hmm.
What do we call this?
Season.
It's a season. Thank you. And we are so we're really in the South, the deep South at this point, in the East, and we're loving it. It's all sunshine. It's all bright colored homes and tons of history. It's been lovely.
You, I feel like, really liked the weather the further south that we got.
Yeah, for sure. I love the sunshine. Gives me good vibes.
Even though we'd only been in fall for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We were still so ready to be warm again.
Yes. Yeah. That's my go-to. I do like it. That's why I love that we live back in Texas again. Because it's like all sunshine.
That's
most
true.
of the time.
That's true. Mostly hot and sunny here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, guys, this is also part of the gap year adventures that we experienced back at this point, this would have been the fall 2022, and we were going through our gap year, and we are getting out those episodes to you guys to help you kind of understand where you might want to go next on your adventure, whether it's through Europe or through different parts of the US or even some into Canada. We kind of got a little taste of a lot of that. And so this is kind of piecing all of that together. Yeah,
we really kind of made a list of like, what all do we want to see, and just went for it. And here we're in the South. Neither of us had been to the South before. We had just come from Charleston. So if you missed that episode, you'll want to go back and check it. There's also a really good companion video for Charleston on our YouTube channel. So that stuff's out there. But we made our way to Savannah, Georgia, which another like classic southern U.S. city. It's a city on a river, so a huge river that leads to the ocean. It's on the eastern coast of Georgia, so very, very close to the ocean. So you see different, like there were a few cargo ships and stuff like that, but we also saw like really old like riverboats.
Yeah, little riverboat cruises.
And yeah, with like the big wheel paddles on the back and stuff like that. And they're actually not just like docked up. I think I've seen them like docked up places before.
Yeah.
But there was one in particular that I remember. We're on the river at like sunset, and it's fully operational out there, paddles going, paddling down the river. Everything was like still and quiet, and that boat was all lit up and paddling down the river. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that looked like that would be a lot of fun. The other thing that Savannah is so well known for, I feel like, is just the vegetation and the lushness of everything around it. So all the plants and vegetation. The live oak tree is actually the tree of Georgia. And I don't usually point out the tree in each state, but in this instance, I thought it was really interesting because they only get around 50 feet tall, but their branches spread out really wide to like 100 feet wide.
Right.
Which is really interesting, and it looks really cool.
It's definitely that like signature southern thing that you think of when you think of the South, is those like oak trees, and like Savannah has so much of like that architecture too.
Yeah.
Just all that southern charm, the colorful homes, like all of it it's all out of a picture book right there.
Yeah, for sure. And all of the Spanish moss that hangs from those trees,
Mm-hmm.
which I didn't know was called Spanish moss at the time. But whenever we got there, I was like, what is this? I really want to know more about this. And they call it Spanish moss, but it's not actually a moss that is growing from the trees. It's kind of like an air plant that is hanging and growing from the tree itself. So it could fall off onto the ground and it would still be living and growing.
Right. Like I was kind of surprised at how like light and airy it is, because you think of moss, and like the only moss that I've ever known is like slimy green moss that grows on like bricks or like trees in really wet places.
Yeah.
And so you see pictures of it, and knowing that it's called Spanish moss, I thought that it would be sort of wet.
Right? Yeah.
But
Good
it's
point.
like kind of light and airy, which is totally different than what I had kind of pictured in my mind.
Yeah. It always makes me think of weeping willows too. Like it's kind of got that same kind of feeling, but it's, it's not. But I think if, a younger version of me would have been like, yeah, I walked around a lot of weeping willows, and you're like, that's not what that is. A lot of willow trees. That's not what that is. But yeah, I just think that's so fascinating. And it's really signature for this part of the country.
Yeah.
I mean, you just want to take a picture of all of it. It just looks amazing. And then if you think about it, these trees with this moss hanging from it, they spread out so wide that you end up having so much shade, which is really important because it gets pretty hot there.
Yes. Yes, it does. Well, and I think it being so hot there too plays into it, because these trees, like the branches are able to grow far out like that. Like other places where you get snow and ice, it would just become way too heavy and those branches would break, but they don't get that there. And so you see these trees that they just look like they've been there forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Another interesting thing about Savannah is that during the Civil War, one of the generals in the Union had burned down the city of Atlanta to the ground at some point. And then he arrived in Savannah with intentions, I guess, to also burn Savannah down. But the city was so beautiful that he decided to spare it, which I think is so romantic. And instead of burning it down to the ground, he actually sent President Lincoln a telegraph talking about Savannah. And in that telegraph, more or less offered him the city as like a Christmas present, which I thought was like, oh, that's interesting. But also like, it's just such a different world to think that somebody like owns a city because they conquered it and they're just going to give it to somebody.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting that, this army is like marching through and comes to it and they're like, this place is too pretty to burn down. Because the same thing happened in Bruges, Belgium. Like when we were there, remember on our walking tour there, we learned that the German troops made it to Bruges and they were like, it's too pretty. We can't destroy it.
Wow. That's so cool.
It's just interesting how war takes its toll on huge sections of countries, and then some places just get spared and they're like these time capsules. What's
really interesting is the places that don't get spared, they are probably hit by bombs. There's not somebody standing there looking at how beautiful they are before they actually just decide to destroy them. Food for thought, guys. Okay, one other interesting fact, and then we can kind of tell people more about our own experience there. But one thing that I thought was really interesting, and I didn't remember this, but when we were going back and looking at Savannah, one of the things that is, well known there, I guess, except for by me, is that you can take your cocktails to go. I'm like, man, I should have taken more advantage of that and been like, okay, let's go.
It's funny because I feel like there are a few places like that in the U.S. where you can take your cocktails with you. But when you're not used to that, you never think of it.
Oh, never crosses my mind.
And so every time you're like, okay, let's finish up before we go to the next place.
Yeah.
And it's never like, I'll just take this with me.
Yeah. Can I get a to-go cup, Yeah, for my beer.
Like the locals get to take advantage of that.
Yeah. But also, I feel like a lot of places where you can carry on the street, there's such a party scene and it's a little trashier and all that kind of stuff. And Savannah was very clean.
It was.
It was very respectful. It didn't feel overly, like an overly party scene or anything.
Right.
It still felt like that they cared and loved their city. So.
Yeah, it was very clean and very, very cool. And I mean, kind of everywhere we went there was that way. Even down to the state park that we stayed in.
Oh my goodness, it was very clean and lovely.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Which if you're an RVer, state parks can a lot of times be the way to go. If you can book out far enough in advance, they can be really affordable and really great, a lot prettier. You know, a lot of RV parks, they're really maximizing space and like packing people in. And sometimes they can come with resort amenities that are nice, but for the most part, you're kind of right on top of each other. But state parks tend to be a little more spread out, and they're just prettier.
I like the privacy.
And a little more tranquil. And we've been to some really great state parks. Texas has a lot of really good state parks. But I remember we got there. They were super nice when we arrived. We got there a couple hours early, and the drive just didn't take as long as we kind of thought it would. And they let us check in early. Our site was ready. We had this huge, massive site in the middle of all these big trees, trees everywhere, Spanish moss everywhere. And there were other people there, but it didn't feel like it.
Right.
Because the site was so big, so spread out.
Yeah.
Nice concrete sites. It was only water and electric, so no sewer. But we were only there a couple days, so that didn't really affect us. If you were staying longer, that might bother you depending on how you use your RV. But the facilities were great.
Even the roads were so nice, how they were paved and everything. And which sounds really silly, but if you think about it, a lot of state parks, they're not necessarily well maintained, and this just felt like it kind of felt like a little resortish.
It was super nice, and the roads were really wide. We had a pull through site that was super easy to get in and out of. And not only was the pad where you parked your RV paved, but they had an additional like pad where they had your camping table, and you could set up your fire pit and all that kind of stuff. A massive concrete pad separate for that as well. Which was really cool. It was just so nice. I remember getting there and being like, this place is so pretty. I can't believe they were only staying a couple nights.
I know.
I wish we were staying longer.
Yeah, that really was the sentiment. And yeah, I do remember being worried about alligators, though. I will say we'd gone from bear country to alligator country, and I was like, oh boy.
What am I going to worry about now? What am I going to be afraid of?
Exactly. But bears can eat alligators can eat your dog.
That's true. They can eat your dog.
So I was worried for Maggie. And, whenever you go and take her out in the dark to like use the bathroom, you got to be thinking about that.
Those alligators just come out of the trees, get you.
Yes, exactly. That is literally what happens. And there's nothing you can do to protect yourself from an alligator. At least with bears, you can get bear spray. So there's that. Okay, well, our first day in Savannah, we really only had one full day there. But our first day there, we went walking around, and one of the things that we came across, we weren't even intentionally looking for this, but we were walking past some incredible old homes that were like so pretty. Just really, really great old homes. And there was this one that it was a church with a home beside it, and it had a big plaque there that you could read from the street. And it was honoring Georgia's first black nun. And her name was Mathilda Beasley. And she taught black children in her home during the Civil War. And that was back whenever it was illegal to do that. And she got married for like a decade, but that was such a small part of her life. It's kind of interesting. After her husband died, she traveled to York, England, which we'd actually been there. If you guys are interested in this, we have a whole episode on York, England, and a video out there. But she went there to study as a nun, and then she returned to Savannah and founded the first black nun group in Georgia. And then she created an orphanage there and helped orphans. And later she had this incredible life where she would make clothes for people and give it to the poor and do all kinds of things that were so selfless. And at the end of her life, she was found in the chapel, and she had died there at the church kneeling beside her funeral instructions, her burial clothes, and her will. And that's how she wrapped up her like really meaningful life, was like in a church. Like she knew she was going to die, so she went in there to die.
That's pretty crazy that you would be physically capable of like getting all that stuff together and going, but at the same time knowing like I'm probably going to die today. That's really insane. And you know,
to know you're going to be in pain and you're not really telling anybody like, I'm going to go suffer through this pain.
Yeah. And you know, it made me kind of think of like, as we recalled this, like this isn't something that we sought out. Like we didn't go like, oh, we know of this person, we're gonna go seek out this place. But it just came because we were just walking around in like in a historic part of a city and stopped to read a marker. And I think so many times on trips and with travel, we tend to like program every second of the day. And, you know, I think I just want to kind of remind myself of like, leave time to just like walk around.
Yeah.
And just explore and see what's there and just walk through the old historic places and see what you can find.
Right.
And, you know, programming is great and having a plan and, you know, because a lot of times the stuff you want to do, you got to buy tickets for and you have to get in, you have to know when it opens and when it closes and all that. So you have to do a lot of planning to make a vacation really good. But plan in some time to just walk around too.
Yeah, that's a really great point. In fact, like if we had really been in that mindset even more so, we would have encouraged ourselves to like walk in that chapel, see inside that church, like, you know, and I don't know, maybe it wasn't open, maybe it's not open to the public even at all, but yeah, like how much more meaningful that would have been if we had like been like, you know what, we got an hour, let's do that.
Right, we have time. Yeah. There's just so much history there, which is so kind of rare in the U.S. I feel like there's a lot of natural beauty, but we just haven't been around that long to have like a ton of history. But there's other like historical stuff there too. We went and saw the Wormslow historic site. So it's an old homestead, obviously in Savannah, but they have this row of oak trees with the Spanish moss that like lead down the drive, and it's this straight drive, and it must be a mile long of just solid trees on either side. Just a beautiful, incredible drive. It's a super Instagrammable place.
I felt like I'd seen it before, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we probably have in like movies and stuff.
True,
like Georgia is big for the film industry. They do a lot of filming there, so I'm sure it had to have been on a movie somewhere. But it's the actual home of Noble Jones. Back in 1733, he established his homestead there, named it Wormslow after where they were from in Wales, in England. And that family is still there. So 7 generations later,
that's crazy.
That family is still there. And it's now, they have like their residence part, and people don't go there, but the rest of it is actually run by the Georgia Parks Department. It was like $10 to get in, and you get to, you get access to all these trails because it's kind of a complex that's sort of like spread out, and you get most places on foot. And so you take trails to these old tabby homes that were built, and they kind of had a wall around them that made like a courtyard and then an inner home, and it was built out of like sand and seashells. And you can see the remnants of these homes there, and the walls, and kind of where everything was set up and how they were made. And it was just really cool. And then there's another little section where they had like a blacksmith shop and another type of house that was built a little later, and like a grass hut, and just kind of all these areas. And to get to them, you're walking down these beautiful nature trails through all these trees and stuff. It's a really kind of tranquil, nice place to go, just walk around. Especially we were there in October, so the weather was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And perfect for something like that.
It's a great outdoor activity because, I mean, it is purely outdoors. So kind of think of it as going to a park, you know.
Right.
And, you know, like you said, walking around a lot. But I, just to your point about the tabby houses made of seashells and sand, I mean, when you like lean up and kind of look at them, like, and really like look, you can see plain as day these seashells.
Yes.
It's really interesting, almost like mussels, it looks like, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really, really interesting, but they did a great job. I mean, some of that's still standing hundreds of years later.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe you can make a house out of that and it would still be standing?
Right. You know, it reminded me of a lot of the mortar in between the big stones at Dover Castle. I remember seeing like that a lot of the mortar was made with like seashells, and you could see the seashells in there. And I thought like, wow, they're doing the same thing over here because you're close to the ocean. It's what you have to build with. And, you know, these old houses that have been there since 1733 that you can just walk up and touch and see. It's pretty cool, especially for just $10 and all that you get to walk through and the trails. Like, it's nice.
Yeah. Or if you want to take some good photos, it is legitimately a great place to go.
Yeah, it is. And we got some good footage of it, especially of the trails and the trees and stuff like that. So if you want to go out and watch the YouTube video, our companion video with this on our YouTube channel, you can kind of see what we're talking about there.
Yeah. One of the other things we did while we were in Savannah was a haunted pub crawl, which I was super excited about, and it was fine. I think it was good. You know, we didn't actually film a whole lot because it was so dark. It can be hard to film in the dark.
It can be hard to film in the dark, and with a little bit of a smaller tour group, it becomes very obvious when you're filming.
Right.
I feel like in Europe, a lot of our walking tours would be like 20, 30 people. And you can kind of float around and film and nobody really notices or cares. And there's usually a couple other people taking pictures and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But this was like 10 people. And so then it becomes really obvious if you like step away from the group.
Yeah.
Which makes it harder to film.
Yeah. But our tour guide was really good. Her name was Rebecca. She had a ton of stories because apparently there's a lot of creepy stuff that goes on in Savannah. And the land there, so Savannah was actually founded on ancient burial grounds. So there's a lot of possibility of hauntings. And wherever you stand, so the saying goes, wherever you stand within Savannah, you are always within 9 feet of a dead body. It's kind of creepy.
It is super creepy when you think about it. There's that many people just like buried everywhere there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now, what to you would constitute a good ghost tour? Because we've been on a lot of ghost tours, and you have very similar feedback to all of them.
That's true. I'm never really a fan. I'm always super excited to do it, but I'm never really a fan. I think maybe the less people, the better.
Okay.
I think that I'm not necessarily looking for you to like, I think maybe later at night would actually be better because it'd be scarier.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like a lot of times these tour guides will like tell you some theatrical story and you're like, okay, am I just watching a play? I didn't come to watch a play.
I feel like you want to go with Zach from Ghost Hunters and like,
is that an option?
Have like watch like a lamp move a little bit and him just like flip out.
Yeah. That's what I want. There you go. Well, I'm glad you asked. You knew the answer, but I'm glad you asked because now I know the answer.
So if you're ever traveling with Hilarie and she's super excited about a ghost tour, just know that you're going to have to talk her back up after it's over because she's a little disappointed.
I probably need to do more of my own investigating and like in advance and kind of like read up on the history a little bit better so that like I can be into it a little bit more, I think, because I kind of show up like being like, okay, give it to me. And there's only so much they can do for you in the short amount of time that they have. So.
Yeah. Well, and I do feel like a lot of times they are like, it is kind of like a play.
Yeah.
Because they have a script that they've memorized and they just kind of deliver it. But
yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that does not disappoint in Savannah is the food.
Oh my goodness. It was really good.
We're only there a couple days, but we had a lot of really, really good food.
So what was your favorite place that we ate at?
I probably enjoyed the trailer park the most.
Oh, okay.
It was good. We had dinner there, and it's trailer Trey. Trailer park.
Like you get a big old tray of food, a mess of food on a tray.
Yes, but they also have like pictures of Airstreams and other trailers.
That's true,
everywhere. So,
which was on theme. Yeah,
they're kind of embracing it all. But it's that low country food. In fact, what I had was called the low country flatbread. And it was essentially like a flatbread pizza, but with like shrimp and grits on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was so good. It was just really, really good.
Yeah. And I had some nachos, the trailer park nachos, which sounds as trashy as it is. It was great. But instead of potato chips, they actually had potatoes. So, so that was kind of fun. Like, what do you call it? Not wedge potatoes.
Like waffle fries.
Yeah,
almost.
waffle fries. Yeah. And then they had it drizzled with all kinds of stuff. And
all the fixins.
It was really good. I could hardly like put a dent in it because it was so big, but it was really good. And then, but I would say that my favorite place was Maple Street Biscuit Company.
Yeah.
I loved that. And we were going there for the first time in Savannah. We'd never heard of it.
Right.
And then we ended up seeing it again down the road when we went to St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yes.
And it's yummy. It's yummy both times. And both times I got the same thing. And it was awesome.
It was really, really good. And they have like, it's one of those places where you go and you look at a menu and you're like, there's 17 things on this menu that I want to try.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the one I got was like a biscuit that was incredible with fried chicken on it. And then it had some jelly that was like a spicy jelly. Mm-hmm. And then goat cheese. I'm pretty sure that was what I got. And it was so good. And I did definitely order the same exact thing because I even compared photos and I was like, later on down the road when we went again, and I was like, I think I might have had this before. And sure enough, same exact thing.
Well, and we went to the peach cobbler factory as well, which if you like peaches or peach cobbler or anything sweet, really, it's a great place to go. They had so many. We got like a sampler or like a flight of cobbler.
Yeah.
And it was really, really good.
Yeah.
And you could just tell walking around down there, you know, on our haunted pub crawl, we went into a bunch of pubs and had drinks, and you know, you kind of scoping out the stuff that people are eating as well when you're in there. We didn't have food as part of it, but just so many good places to eat.
Yeah.
I feel like you could probably it would be hard to go wrong.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there was some decent shopping too. We didn't do any, but I remember thinking like, oh, this would be fun to just shop and eat today.
We were only there a couple nights and we had to do some like life stuff while we were there. So we didn't get to do as much as we really wanted. We also like budget wise, knew we were about to head to Miami and down to the Florida Keys. And so we knew like we kind of need to really stay on budget here. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't get to do all the stuff that we really wanted, but it's definitely one of those places that I'm like, oh man, I would definitely go back. Yeah.
We did have to check some boxes and get some stuff done. Like Maggie needed a haircut. Yeah. And that was pretty cute though, because it was a good place to do it. They had a place called Wolfgang, like woof woof, Wolfgang Bakery, and so it was like this dog bakery. Well, I mean, it was very, very gourmet and very bougie. And but they also would take dogs in the back and kind of do like a spa session and give her a haircut and everything. And it was like this cute pink and white old home on this corner of this street, kind of in a residential neighborhood, but also other businesses that were homes that were, I just love an old home that's been converted into a business is so charming to me.
Yeah.
And I love that people are willing to not tear down old homes, but to make it work for them.
Right.
I think is really cool. And so, yeah, we like took her there, and you have to go out to the YouTube channel and watch the video because to see her full transformation, because when Maggie gets haircuts, it is a dramatic thing.
She becomes a different dog.
Oh, she's a totally different dog because we let her get really shaggy. She is a golden doodle. And so she gets really, really shaggy. And then we have them cut her hair and she just looks like a tiny little dog with big eyes. And she cuddles into this little tiny ball when she's just had a haircut. She gets a little colder and it's so cute. But yeah, we did a big reveal of her haircut on there. It was really fun.
You'll definitely want to go to the YouTube channel and check that out. Make sure that you are subscribed there, have all your notifications on, because we are headed down to Florida, going to Miami, another really unique place, one of our favorite stops.
Oh man, talk about sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah, so much good stuff to say about Miami. And that is what's coming next.
That's right. So looking forward to that. And if you guys want to kind of follow along our journey on social media, we post some more regular things, although maybe we haven't so much lately, but we'll get on that. We've posted some things about like where we are today and what's happening in our lives today. And that's all on social media. We are out there as the Travel FOMO podcast on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, YouTube. You can find us and you can also find us out there if you want to reach out to us directly. Feel free to email us at travelfomopodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If you have good travel tips that you'd like us to share with everyone here, please send them our way. Or if you have questions about the places we've been, if there's some way that we can help you out, we'll for sure do it.
Okay, guys, life is short.
Wander well.